Hello guys, Yoander here. Another episode of Follow Up Wednesday. This Wednesday, we're reviewing Sunday's message, and that was in relations to Hosea 4, verse 6. And back then and now, he's talking about how we, God's children, are suffering. We're suffering because we lack knowledge. So many of God's people are suffering back then and now because we lack knowledge. So he says that it would behoove us to ask ourselves if any of our problems are related to a lack of knowledge. Now, it's not the lack of knowledge you and I are thinking about right now. It's not Google knowledge. It is godly knowledge, which is acquired through a revelation. What does that mean? The thing is, I know it's very logical. What do you mean? Okay, that just to bring to light something, right? Just to make it logical. No, it's a relationship. It's you and I have to consult God and ask Him to reveal to us those things which are unknown in our lives through a revelation. So revelations can only be gotten through a personal dialogue with Him. So he says to quit surviving on hand-me-downs. On hand-me-down revelations, go to God yourself. He says to quit surviving on hand-me-down revelation from other people. In this case, I think he's referring to pastors like himself. Quit listening to him directly and get all your food from there. No, you're not to get all your food from him or any other pastor. Go to God yourself. Get the revelation yourself. And you can only do that by having a relationship with God, by knowing Him, right? So that's what he means by my people are suffering because of a lack of knowledge. Knowledge in this case is referring to that revelation, right? And that relationship that we lack. So very often in our lives, we reject, we ignore, or we're just plain lazy to the information which we know deep inside is there. We know deep inside what we should be doing. We know that we should be getting into a word every day, right? Even if 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, the time doesn't matter, the habit matters. Let me repeat that. The time you spend with God doesn't matter so much as the habit. To have that habit of allowing Him to be priority in your life, that's really what matters. When things go south, when the doctor tells you no, something you don't want to hear, when, in my case, when sellers tell me, no, I don't want to sell you my house, when buyers tell me, hey, you know what, I'm not buying that anymore. You know, you guys have your own examples in your businesses, but when things don't go your way, do you think of God first? Or do you think of men first? And say, oh, the seller told me no. Let me call my coach real quick and see what I could have done better. Or do you think of God first, right? And do you think about the relationship you have with? You should have a relationship with Him. If not, there's your answer. Start one, right? It's just a matter of the will. It's no different than any other habits you've established for yourself. So that's what he's talking about. His presence, we are going to continue going through them. So His presence is enough. That's another point he made. That sometimes we want answers to fit our needs. We want answers, in my case, I want sellers to tell me yes. I want buyers to tell me yes. I want title companies. I want people to work, joint venture partners. I want lenders. I want all these people to tell me yes so my business can flourish. Of course I want that, right? Who doesn't? He says when things don't go your way, many times we want answers to address those pressing moments. Hey, seller told me no today, God. Can you tell him yes, please? Can you make him change his mind? Can you have him see how good of a guy I am and I am going to solve his problem by buying his house? Many times we want that. The answer often is His presence is enough. Think about that. Jesus' presence is enough. So His presence in our lives is enough. So I want you to chew that for a moment because it's very powerful. His presence is enough. And when you really get the feeling of the meaning of that message, His presence is enough, you will begin to understand that His presence is enough. I think we're so spoiled. I know I'm spoiled. We wake up in the morning, and if we can breathe, if we can move over all of our limbs, if we have all of our limbs, right? And we can move, and we can see, and we can operate all of our senses, man, we should kneel to God right then and there and give thanks for another opportunity we get to live healthy in this planet. Anything over that is gravy. Anything over that is gravy. So when we come from that place of gratitude, we're going to be less likely to be bothered by that seller telling us no, right? Or that lender telling me, no, I won't lend you the money to buy that house. Go somewhere else. He also mentions Matthew 4:4. He says to get over ourselves and empty ourselves. And he says that most of us Christians go to church to see what we can get from church to feed our needs. What golden nuggets such as these can we get from church to apply into our lives to feed our goals, right? We have goals, of course. We have visions. We should. Otherwise, we're going to perish. We know that. Go to church to see, what can the pastor say? What can these other members say? What knowledge, what ideas, what enlightenments I can get from here that would help me accomplish my goals, right? And he says that instead of going to church to get, he says go to church to give up more of yourself, to get over yourself, to empty yourself, and get to the point where, I think it's Paul that said it, that I don't live in this world, Jesus lives in me. Because he's basically saying that he's not him, Jesus is living in him. Jesus is occupying his body experience, but he's the one occupying his consciousness, his mentality, his of course, his words, his actions, his everything, right? His habits. So, wow. Can you imagine getting to that place where you can say, Jesus is living in me? I know I'm not there yet. And that's why I'm doing this, right? I want to learn. I want to grow. And I know you do too. That's why you're watching this. He continues to, about Joshua 4:6. That is not our fault. Hey, I didn't know this. But we ignore it. We're lazy. Or we reject it. We've forgotten, the passage says that we've forgotten, and it's one of these three things. We are lazy, we ignore it, or we reject it. So let's talk about those three things. I think laziness is the easiest one to address. So if you're lazy, you can stop that right now by not being lazy, right? And there's very practical things you can do in your life to begin developing that muscle of not being lazy. The first one I would urge you to do is to do things you don't like to do. That's not very enlightening. Okay, I knew that, right? To not be lazy, yes, you have to do things you don't like to do. Okay, let's get more practical. Okay, start taking cold showers. I know you don't want to take a cold shower. It's painful. I know it's traumatic sometimes, but it's a good habit. Start drinking water only, or choose something that you know is very hard for you. You guys know your own challenges, right? The point is to start telling your body, no, you're not in control, right? If you love bread, give up bread, right? And tell your body, no, you're not in control. Make advanced decisions. Advanced decision making is a habit that's very healthy to your life. Make advanced decisions of things you're going to do in your life. You know, I'm going to St. Louis here on February the 11th. I already have my plane ticket, right? I want to have all that set. So when I go to St. Louis for my event, I don't have to think about the hotel, right? Can you imagine showing up to a city you don't know and with no hotel, no vehicle to move around? You're gonna be under a lot of stress. Nowadays, you know, we have a lot of choices, but it's a lot better when you do it ahead of time. Most of us do it ahead of time, right? So when we get there, we can focus on the purpose we're in that city for, right? So similarly in our lives, in your life and my life, let's learn to make advanced decisions, right? What does that mean? So tomorrow morning, make a simple decision, such as, you know, I'm just going at 6 a.m. If you're used to waking up at 6:30, hey, 6, that's doable. It's only half an hour earlier. Come on. So wake up at 6, right? If you wake up at 6:30, and the first thing you're going to do before you brush your teeth, before you go to the restroom, is to read a verse, whatever verse. I mean, this will be a great verse because this is the one we're studying, Hosea 4 verse 6, and keep going, keep reading, right? But the point is to establish that habit and make advanced decisions. And you know what? Your body is going to know. As soon as you wake up, you're going to know and reach for the Bible. This is what I'm supposed to do. Your body knows. Our body's smart. And then you're going to do that and you're going to astound yourself. I just kind of knew this was what I was supposed to do. And then keep playing with that idea. Keep continuing to make more advanced decisions, right? So that's laziness, right? That's one practical way that you can combat laziness, right? When you're sore and you're hurting and it's cold outside, believe me, it takes a lot of willpower, but advanced decisions help a lot. So don't try it, do it. Okay, so that was laziness. Now, ignorance, we often just play dumb. We choose our pride over our knowledge, he said. We reject God because, like I said earlier, we reject God when we don't think about him first for an answer, right? The seller told me, no, I reached for my coach instead of reaching for him. I don't believe that he's going to solve my problem. Can you imagine that? I'm not confident that God is going to solve my business problem. I know, sounds ludicrous, but that's what we do. As we develop this relationship with him, we're going to go to him more often, which is the goal. When you think of him first, when things go south and you get into prayer first, regardless of what the doctor said, you get into prayer first, that's when you know you got your trust where it's supposed to be. To walk in love and to forgive, right? We reject God, right? We know we're supposed to walk in love and forgive. We know we're supposed to trust him with our money. We don't trust him. Again, ludicrous. He can give us all the money in the world, and yet we don't trust him with our time. He says that when you don't ignore him, when you obey him, you are not lazy, you activate his hand to bless you and your family. He gets to be God in your life. Let me repeat that because that was powerful. When we don't reject, we don't ignore, we don't reject, and we're not lazy, we allow him, or we activate his hand to bless our life and that of our families. And he gets to be God in our lives. Isn't that powerful? Because of that disconnect. The information was always there. Pastor Albert offers the example that you and I have used many times before. I wish I known that when I was younger. The information was always there, but I was too busy chasing girls. I was too busy playing soccer. I was too busy doing other things, right? I didn't really want to know it. The information was always there. Adam Sandler has been here since the 60s. That's where I learned it from, right? Great sales trainer. His answer is so simple, right? Knock and it'll be open, right? Seek and you will find. I mean, he's a God of principle, cause and effect. I wasn't putting in the causes, I didn't get the effects. Simple. As you sow, so shall you reap. This thing is very simple, but we don't do it. Why not? So God's word is not cheap, but he compares his word to that of a lost gem. We go through that much effort to find it. Okay, some of us have not grown up to get our food. If I was left alone, I would choose pleasure over necessities. Yes, so he said that if when he was 5 years old, and I don't believe that he remembers when he was 5 years old, but he says he remembered when he was 5 years old, and that he would choose candy over spinach. Of course, every kid does that. And the point was that if it was up to him back then, because he was so immature, he was such a baby, he didn't know any better, he was going for pleasure rather than necessity. That pleasure, right? That's what the body wants, that beer, that joint, right? He says to switch it and go for necessity. We know what's necessary. We know that water is necessary for us. We know that vegetables are necessary for us. We know that reading is necessary for us. We know that forgiving is necessary for us. We know that high energy is necessary for our businesses. We know that all that is necessary. What's pleasurable is to not do those things. Go for necessity, not pleasure. We're one revelation away, he says. We are one revelation away from growing. What truth are we rejecting? Your increase is in the unknown areas of your life. Okay, and then he ends the message with this. He says, our increase is in the unknown areas of our lives. So we gotta be comfortable in the unknown areas of our lives. That means we gotta be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? We've talked about that before. And the formula, he says, to receive it, believe it, and obey it. When we develop that habit of reading in the morning, getting the word, and really studying, developing the relationship, and getting our revelations from the source, not from me, not from Pastor Albert, not from Joel Osteen, not from the source, right? You and him, right? When you get those revelations through the habits you've established, through those advanced commitments you've done for yourself to help you, then you're going to start to receive it, right? That's receiving the revelation. Then you got to believe it. That's when you got to activate your faith. Believe it. Act on it. That means obey it. Very simple. So let's review it and we'll close with that. Receive it. You guys know how to receive the word through those good habits you're going to establish. Let's believe it. That's increasing our faith and acting on our faith, right? If you really believe something, you're going to act on it even if your senses are telling you no. If you believe you're going to receive it, you know how to do that. Believe it. Activate your faith, right? And act on it. Obey it. God is telling us, right? And that's why I think winning, I think having a good relationship with God is reserved for the minority of the population. That if this was reserved for the majority, man, we have more people walking around blessed, happy, healthy, wealthy. Oh, he mentions that. He mentions, that was Psalm 112, that if you do receive it, if you do believe it, and if you do obey it, Psalms 112 is the opposite. He says, I will bless you. I will bring riches into your house. I will bring health into your life. Receive it. We know how to receive it. We know how to believe it. As we have a relationship with him, our faith will increase. And that will lead to action through obedience, right? The reason we don't obey is because we don't really believe. I mean, I think that's where rubber meets the road. It's when you have to act on your faith. Let's take COVID-19, for example, right? You get sick. Do you think of God right? Do you get on your knees right away? Or do you call a doctor? Hey, babe, call a doctor. What's your faith, bro? Your faith is in man or in God? That's where rubber meets the road. So you're not really obeying it. Your faith is still small. Let's receive it. Let's believe it. Let's obey it. And let's keep growing. That process, we can talk about this same process 10 years from now. And it's always the same process. He doesn't change. We're the ones that change. And we should be changing upwards, not downwards. By the way, there's no plateau. You're either doing this or you're doing this. So don't kid yourself thinking, well, I'm staying steady. No. Steady means down. You have to grow. So receive it, believe it, obey it. Bye.